My name is Jessica, 32 years old, and I never thought I would walk in on my husband Marcus and my sister Stephanie naked in our bed. The image burned into my memory forever. I filed for divorce immediately and cut all contact with my family, who somehow blamed me. 6 months of blessed silence followed until my old phone lit up with 100 missed calls from Marcus. Before I tell you what those calls were about, drop a comment telling me where you are watching from and subscribe if you want to hear how I rebuilt my life from complete betrayal. Before my world imploded, I had what many would consider a perfect life. I worked as a marketing director at a prestigious advertising agency in Chicago. My corner office overlooked the river, and I had finally reached the career milestone I had been working toward since graduating from Northwestern University with my business degree. My team respected me, my bosses valued my input, and I loved the creative challenges that came with each new campaign. I met Marcus 5 years ago at a business conference in Atlanta. He was presenting on digital transformation, and I was immediately drawn to his confidence and intelligence. During the networking event afterward, we found ourselves at the same table, discussing the future of marketing in the digital age. What started as a professional conversation quickly turned personal when we discovered our shared love for jazz and classic films. Our connection was immediate and intense. After exchanging business cards and texting for a few weeks, Marcus flew to Chicago for our first official date. He took me to a small jazz club hidden away in a basement on the south side. The way he looked at me that night made me feel like the only woman in the world. "I knew you were special the moment I saw you," he told me as we swayed to the music. "I would have flown anywhere to see you again." Our relationship progressed quickly. Weekend visits turned into Marcus relocating his consulting business to Chicago 6 months later. He was everything I had ever wanted in a partner: intelligent, ambitious, supportive, and kind. He encouraged my career growth while also reminding me to take time for myself. For the first time in my life, I felt truly seen and understood. After 2 years of dating, Marcus proposed during a private sunset boat ride on Lake Michigan. He had arranged for a string quartet to play our favorite song as he got down on one knee. I could barely see the diamond through my tears of joy. "You make me want to be a better man every day," he said. "I cannot imagine my life without you in it." Our wedding was a dream come true. We exchanged vows in a historic garden venue surrounded by 150 of our closest friends and family members. My father, with tears in his eyes, walked me down the aisle. My mother beamed with pride, and my younger sister Stephanie served as my maid of honor. Stephanie and I had always had a complicated relationship. 4 years younger than me, she grew up in my shadow, according to my mother. While I excelled academically and found my career path early, Stephanie bounced between jobs and relationships, never quite finding her footing. She was stunningly beautiful, with natural grace that I had always envied, but she seemed to resent my stability and success. "Your sister just needs time to find herself," my mother would say, whenever I expressed concern about Stephanie quitting another job or ending another relationship. "Not everyone can be as focused as you, Jessica." Despite our differences, I loved my sister fiercely. When she struggled financially, I helped her with rent. When she went through bad breakups, my spare bedroom was always available. I truly believed that was what sisters did for each other. Marcus was equally welcoming, always making sure Stephanie felt included in our family gatherings. The first 3 years of our marriage were blissful. Marcus and I established routines and traditions while still maintaining the spark that had initially drawn us together. Sunday morning pancakes, Thursday date nights, summer weekend trips to Michigan. We moved from our downtown apartment to a beautiful 3-bedroom house in Lincoln Park, with plans to fill those extra rooms with children in the near future. "I cannot wait to see you," as a mother, Marcus would say as we discussed our future family. "You will be amazing." By our 3rd anniversary, we had started trying for a baby while also looking at properties for a vacation home. Marcus had expanded his consulting firm, and I had received another promotion. From the outside, everything looked perfect. The first signs of trouble were subtle. Marcus started coming home later, often smelling of alcohol. Our passionate conversations turned into brief exchanges about schedules and household tasks. He began checking his phone constantly, turning the screen away whenever I walked into the room. When I asked about these changes, he dismissed my concerns. Work is stressful right now, he would say. I just need some space to decompress. Around this same time, Stephanie began showing up at our house more frequently. She had just broken up with her boyfriend of 6 months and claimed she needed sisterly support. I welcomed her, of course, happy to provide a shoulder to cry on. But something felt different about her visits. She would ask detailed questions about my work schedule and seemed particularly interested in when I would be working late. I just want to know when I can come over without bothering you, she explained when I questioned her. I know how busy you are with your big, important job. There was an edge to her voice that I chose to ignore. After all, she was my sister and she was going through a difficult time. I never suspected that the two people I trusted most in the world were already betraying me behind my back. The changes in Marcus became more pronounced as weeks passed. His warmth and affection, once so freely given, now seemed calculated and sparse. The man who used to send me random text messages throughout the day just to say he was thinking of me now barely acknowledged my presence when we were in the same room. One night I woke up around 2 a.m. to find his side of the bed empty. I wandered downstairs and found him on the patio engrossed in a hushed phone conversation. When he noticed me standing at the door, he quickly ended the call. Work emergency, he explained without meeting my eyes. Go back to bed. The next morning I asked about the call and he became defensive, accusing me of spying on him. Do you not trust me now? Is that what this has become? His reaction seemed disproportionate to my simple question, planting the first real seed of doubt in my mind. Meanwhile, Stephanie had somehow become a fixture in our home. She would show up unannounced often when Marcus was home, but I was preparing to leave for work. She brought groceries to help out and offered to make dinner for Marcus on nights when I had late meetings. At the time, I appreciated what I perceived as her thoughtfulness. You work so hard, Jess, she would say. Let me help take care of things here, so you do not have to worry. Her tone was caring, but there was something in her eyes that should have alarmed me, a possessive gleam, when she looked around our home as if she were mentally rearranging furniture and claiming the space as her own. Marcus began criticizing aspects of my life that had never bothered him before. My dedication to my career, once something he had admired, became a point of contention. Do you really need to work such long hours, he would ask. The agency would survive without you, you know. He started making comments about my appearance too. You never dress up for me anymore, or, remember how you used to make an effort. These criticisms confused and hurt me, especially since I was under tremendous pressure at work while still maintaining our home and trying to get pregnant. I began second-guessing myself, wondering if I was indeed neglecting our marriage. The dynamic between Marcus and Stephanie also shifted in ways that made me increasingly uncomfortable. I would enter a room to find them sitting unusually close on the couch, or with their heads bent together in conversation that would abruptly stop when I appeared. They seemed to share inside jokes I was not privy to, exchanging glances across the dinner table that excluded me from whatever unspoken communication passed between them. One evening I came home early from work and found them looking at photo albums in the living room, Stephanie pressed against Marcus as they laughed over childhood pictures she had brought over. Look how cute Jessica was with her braces and frizzy hair, Stephanie was saying as I walked in. The way she jumped away from Marcus at the sight of me triggered alarms I could no longer ignore. I called my best friend Amanda that night while driving to pick up takeout. Something feels wrong between Marcus and Stephanie. I confessed, the words painful even to speak aloud. Amanda had been my friend since college, the sister of my heart rather than blood. What exactly are you saying, Jess? Do you think something is going on between them? I do not know, I replied honestly. Maybe I am just being paranoid. But they act strangely around each other and Marcus has been so distant lately. You need to confront him, Amanda advised. Clear the air. There might be a perfectly reasonable explanation. I took her advice and attempted to talk to Marcus that night after dinner. I feel like there is something you are not telling me, I began cautiously. You have been distant, and I notice you act differently when Stephanie is around. His response was immediate and explosive. Are you accusing me of something? Is that what this is? After everything I have done for you and your sister. He turned the conversation around so skillfully that I ended up apologizing to him for my suspicions. Later I would recognize this as gaslighting, but in the moment, I believed I had wronged him with my unfounded jealousy. Desperate for clarity, I tried talking to my mother about my concerns. We met for lunch at a cafe near her house, and I carefully broached the subject of Stephanie spending so much time at my home. I am worried about her, Mom. She seems unhealthily attached to my marriage. My mother's response stunned me. Your sister is going through a difficult time, Jessica. She looks up to you and your perfect life. Is it so terrible that she wants to spend time with you and Marcus? Maybe if you were home more often instead of always at the office, you would appreciate her help. Her words cut deep, reinforcing the narrative that Marcus had been pushing, that my career focus was somehow damaging my relationships. I left lunch feeling guilty and confused, questioning my own perceptions. That night, I found a text on Marcus's phone while he was in the shower. He had left it unlocked on the kitchen counter, and a message notification from Stephanie lit up the screen. Missing you already. Cannot wait until Friday. When confronted, Marcus claimed she was referring to a family dinner we had planned. She is excited about the meal I promised to cook. You are reading too much into things, Jessica. This paranoia is not attractive. Again, I backed down, doubting myself despite the knot of dread growing in my stomach. I wanted so desperately to believe in my husband and my sister that I was willing to disregard the mounting evidence of their betrayal. But as the weeks progressed, the signs became harder to ignore. Stephanie's car parked down the street from our house when I was supposedly working late. Marcus's unexplained absences and increasingly elaborate excuses. The subtle change in how they both treated me with a mixture of guilt and resentment that made me feel like an outsider in my own life. I was standing at the edge of a painful truth, gathering the courage to finally face what my heart already knew. The day I discovered the truth started like any other Wednesday. I had a morning presentation that went exceptionally well, securing a major client that would bring millions in revenue to the agency. My boss was ecstatic, declaring an early day for the team to celebrate our success. I found myself with an unexpected free afternoon and decided to surprise Marcus with a special dinner. We had been trying to conceive for months without success, and the stress had taken a toll on our intimacy. I thought a romantic evening might help us reconnect. I stopped at the gourmet market to pick up ingredients for his favorite meal, truffle risotto with seared scallops and a bottle of expensive Cabernet Sauvignon. I even splurged on artisanal chocolate soufflés for dessert. With bags of groceries in hand, I felt hopeful for the first time in weeks. Maybe all we needed was quality time together to find our way back to each other. As I turned onto our street, my heart sank. Stephanie's blue Honda Civic was parked in our driveway. She was supposed to be at her receptionist job at the dental office until 5. I checked the time, 2:30 in the afternoon. What was she doing at my house in the middle of a workday? I parked on the street, not wanting to block her car in case this was just a quick visit. Perhaps she had forgotten something the last time she was over. Maybe she was on a late lunch break. My mind raced with innocent explanations as I gathered the grocery bags and approached the front door. The house was quiet when I entered, but something felt off immediately. Both Marcus's and Stephanie's jackets hung on the coat rack. 2 wine glasses sat on the coffee table in the living room, lipstick on one rim alongside a half-empty bottle of the champagne we had been saving for a special occasion. My stomach clenched as I set the groceries on the kitchen counter. I told myself there could be a reasonable explanation, but my body knew the truth before my mind would accept it. My hands trembled as I moved silently through the house, drawn toward the staircase. That is when I heard it, the unmistakable sound of our headboard rhythmically hitting the wall upstairs, accompanied by muffled voices and laughter I recognized all too well. Time seemed to slow as I climbed the stairs, each step heavier than the last. A rational part of my brain screamed at me to turn around to leave and spare myself the visual confirmation of what I already knew in my heart. But I needed to see it. I needed the concrete reality to break the spell of denial I had been living under. Our bedroom door was partially open. Through the gap I saw clothing scattered across the floor, a mix of Marcus's business casual attire and what I recognized as Stephanie's favorite blouse. The one I had complimented just last week. The one I had considered borrowing. I pushed the door open fully, and the scene before me seared itself into my memory forever. My husband and my sister naked in the bed I had shared with Marcus for 3 years, So engrossed in each other they did not immediately notice my presence. How long my voice came out strangled and unfamiliar, cutting through their passion like a knife. They sprang apart, their expressions morphing from ecstasy to shock to something almost like annoyance at the interruption before settling into practiced guilt. Jessica Marcus scrambled to cover himself with the sheets, our sheets, while Stephanie simply sat there making no move to hide her nakedness. This is not what it looks like. A hysterical laugh escaped me. Really? Because it looks like you are fucking my sister in our marriage bed. Stephanie finally reached for her discarded underwear. Jess, you need to calm down so we can talk about this like adults. Her condescending tone snapped something inside me. Talk about what? How the two people I trusted most in the world have been betraying me. How long has this been going on? They exchanged a glance that told me everything I needed to know. This was not the first time, not by a long shot. Marcus found his boxer shorts and pulled them on. Jessica, please. We never meant to hurt you. But you did, I said, surprised by the sudden calm in my voice. You both did, deliberately and repeatedly. If you had been more attentive to your husband's needs, this would not have happened, Stephanie said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy that barely masked her satisfaction. Marcus was lonely. You were always working, always too tired, always too focused on your precious career. I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and saw the jealousy and resentment that had apparently been there all along. So this is my fault. You slept with my husband because I work hard. You had everything, Jessica, she spat. The perfect job, the perfect house, the perfect husband. You did not even appreciate what you had. I gave him what you would not. Marcus stepped between us. That is not fair, Steph. Jessica, listen to me. This just happened. We did not plan it. Do not lie to her, Stephanie interrupted. We have been in love for months. Tell her the truth. The word love hit me like a physical blow. This was not just sex. They had formed an emotional bond behind my back. How many months? I asked, my voice hollow. Their silence confirmed my worst fears. While I had been working late to earn my promotion, while I had been tracking my ovulation and taking prenatal vitamins, while I had been planning our future, they had been building their own relationship under my nose. I turned and walked out of the room, down the stairs and into the kitchen where my abandoned groceries still sat. In a detached state, I picked up my purse and car keys. I could hear them scrambling upstairs, arguing with each other in harsh whispers. Marcus appeared at the bottom of the stairs, hastily dressed. Jessica, please do not leave like this. We need to talk. There is nothing to talk about, I replied. I will be filing for divorce immediately. I want you out of this house by tomorrow. You cannot be serious, he said, reaching for my arm. I jerked away from his touch. Where am I supposed to go? I hear my sister has a place, I said coldly. Or maybe a hotel. I do not care as long as you are gone. Stephanie appeared behind him, fully dressed now, but with her hair still disheveled. Jessica, you are overreacting. These things happen in marriages. If you would just try to understand. I cut her off with a raised hand. You are no longer my sister. As far as I am concerned, I am an only child from this moment forward. I walked out the door to the soundtrack of their continued protests and justifications. In my car, I finally allowed the tears to come, great heaving sobs that made it impossible to drive. I called Amanda, barely able to form coherent sentences through my crying. I will be right there, she said, once she understood what had happened. Do not move. 20 minutes later, she pulled up beside me and guided me into her car. She took me back to her apartment where I collapsed on her couch in a state of shock. My phone buzzed constantly with calls and texts from Marcus, from Stephanie, and eventually from my parents. I silenced it without reading any messages. The next morning, I learned from Amanda that Stephanie had called my parents immediately after I left, spinning a story about how I had walked in on a misunderstanding and overreacted. According to Stephanie, she had been helping Marcus plan a surprise anniversary trip when I burst in and jumped to conclusions. She portrayed herself as the victim of my irrational jealousy, and somehow my parents believed her version of events. Your father says you need to go home and work things out with Marcus, Amanda reported after taking a call from my mother. He says family needs to stick together. They are not my family anymore, I said with a certainty that surprised even me. None of them. The morning after discovering Marcus and Stephanie together, I called in sick to work for the first time in years. Then I contacted Deborah Wilson, a divorce attorney known for her ruthless efficiency. Her firm had handled the divorce of one of my colleagues the previous year, and I remembered how impressed he had been with her no-nonsense approach. "I need to meet with you today," I told her receptionist. "It is an emergency." Deborah squeezed me in for a late afternoon appointment. In her sleek downtown office with its panoramic views of the Chicago skyline, I recounted the events of the previous day with a detachment that concerned even me. It was as if I were describing something that had happened to someone else. "You caught them in the act," Deborah said, taking notes. "That makes things fairly straightforward from a legal standpoint. Illinois is a no-fault state, but infidelity can still impact certain aspects of the settlement, particularly if there has been financial support of the affair partner." Financial support. The words triggered a memory of the numerous times I had covered Stephanie's rent when she was between jobs. Had I been unknowingly financing their affair? "I want this done as quickly as possible," I told Deborah. "I do not care about most of the assets. I just want out." She looked at me over her reading glasses. "I understand the impulse to rush Jessica, but we need to be strategic. Your husband has benefited significantly from your higher income during the marriage. You have rights that need to be protected." By the end of our 2-hour meeting, Deborah had outlined a comprehensive plan. We would file immediately and request temporary exclusive possession of the marital home. She advised me to gather important documents, change passwords on all accounts, and document any joint assets before returning home. "And prepare yourself," she warned. "Once we file, this will likely get ugly. Affairs rarely end marriages amicably, especially when family members are involved." Her prediction proved accurate beyond anything I could have imagined. When Marcus was served with divorce papers at his office the following day, all pretense of remorse evaporated. He and Stephanie went public with their relationship, immediately portraying themselves as star-crossed lovers who had tried to fight their feelings, but ultimately could not deny their connection. "We never wanted to hurt Jessica," Stephanie told mutual friends, who then relayed her words back to me. "But sometimes the heart wants what it wants. Marcus and I have a special bond that Jessica and he never shared." Their narrative painted me as the cold, career-obsessed wife who had driven her husband into the arms of my more nurturing feminine sister. Some people actually seemed to buy this story, including my own parents. My mother called daily, leaving voicemails that evolved from concerned to demanding. "Jessica, you need to think about forgiveness. Family is forever. Marriage takes work and understanding. Your father and I have been through rough patches too." I finally answered her call after a week of screening. "Mom, my husband was having sex with your other daughter in my bed. This is not a rough patch. This is betrayal." "People make mistakes," she replied. "Stephanie is young and impulsive. She has always looked up to you and wanted what you have. Can you not find it in your heart to understand?" I was speechless. "Are you actually defending her?" "I am not taking sides," my mother insisted. "I just want my family back together. Your father is so upset about all this fighting. His blood pressure is through the roof." "I am sorry about Dad's blood pressure," I said coldly. "But I will not be in the same room as Stephanie or Marcus ever again. If that means I cannot see you and Dad either, that is your choice to make." My mother's response made the final break easy. "Well, Stephanie is still our daughter too. We cannot just cut her out of our lives because you will not forgive a mistake." "A mistake is forgetting to pay a bill or burning dinner," I replied. "What they did was a calculated betrayal that continued for months, possibly longer. And now I know where your loyalty lies." I hung up and blocked her number along with my father's and every other family member who might serve as a conduit for their messages. Then I changed my personal phone number entirely, giving the new one only to Amanda, a few trusted colleagues, and my attorney. Deborah had secured a court order, allowing me temporary exclusive possession of our home, forcing Marcus to move out. He took only his personal belongings, leaving behind the furniture and household items we had accumulated together. I learned later that he had moved directly into Stephanie's small apartment. In those first weeks alone in our house, I discovered evidence that their affair had been going on much longer than I had suspected. While packing up Marcus's remaining possessions, I found a hidden folder in his desk containing hotel receipts dating back nearly a year. There were gift receipts for jewelry I had never received, and text message screenshots revealing intimate conversations between him and my sister. The most painful discovery was an email draft saved on our shared home computer. Dated 3 months earlier, it outlined a plan for how they would eventually tell me about their relationship. The email discussed timing options, including waiting until after I received my expected promotion, so she will have her career to console her. The coldness of their calculations stunned me. They had not only betrayed me, but had strategized about how to minimize the consequences for themselves when the truth eventually came out. There was no consideration for my feelings, only concern about managing my reaction for their benefit. I forwarded all these discoveries to Deborah, who used them to counter Marcus's initial claims about the brevity of the affair. When confronted with the evidence, he dropped his request for alimony and agreed to a more equitable division of assets than he had initially demanded. During this period, Amanda became my rock. She stayed with me those first few nights, ensuring I ate and slept. My colleague Rachel also stepped up, covering for me at work when I needed time for legal meetings and bringing me lunch when I returned to the office. "You do not have to go through this alone," Rachel told me over sandwiches in my office. "The team has your back." Their support sustained me through the darkest days when getting out of bed seemed an insurmountable challenge. With their encouragement, I found a therapist specializing in betrayal trauma and began the painful process of untangling my self-worth from the actions of Marcus and Stephanie. The divorce proceedings moved forward with surprising speed. Marcus, perhaps motivated by guilt or eager to start his new life with my sister, agreed to most of my terms. 6 weeks after filing, we met in court for what would be our final encounter. He approached me in the hallway before our hearing, looking thin and tired. For a brief moment, I glimpsed the man I had fallen in love with, but that image quickly dissolved when he spoke. "I never meant for any of this to happen, Jess," he said softly. "I truly loved you in my way." "In your way," I repeated, the words bitter on my tongue. "Your way included sleeping with my sister in our bed. Your way included lying to my face for months. Your way destroyed everything we built together." He had the decency to look ashamed. "I know. And I will regret that for the rest of my life. I just hope someday you can forgive us." I looked at him directly, seeing him clearly, perhaps for the first time. "I may someday forgive you, Marcus. Not for your sake, but for mine. But I will never forget, and I will never welcome either of you back into my life." With those words, I walked into the courtroom, ready to close this chapter and begin writing a new one entirely my own. The day my divorce was finalized, I stood on the courthouse steps feeling strangely hollow. The anger and pain that had propelled me through the legal proceedings suddenly gave way to a vast emptiness. I was legally free from Marcus, but the emotional chain still felt heavy around my heart. The woman who had walked down the aisle 3 years ago no longer existed, and I had no clear sense of who had taken her place. "What now?" Amanda asked as we left the courthouse. "I have no idea," I admitted. "I never planned for this life." The next 6 months became a period of reinvention. I sold the house that held too many tainted memories and moved into a modern apartment in a different neighborhood. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of Lake Michigan that reminded me each morning that the world was wider than my pain. With Deborah's skilled negotiation, the divorce settlement provided me with enough financial cushion to make these changes without stress. Marcus had agreed to a division of assets that acknowledged my greater contributions to our marital wealth, perhaps out of guilt or simply to expedite the process. Either way, I was grateful for the freedom it provided. I committed to complete radio silence with Marcus, Stephanie, and my parents. I blocked their email addresses, returned mail unopened, and instructed mutual friends not to relay messages. This clean break was essential for my healing, creating space for me to focus entirely on rebuilding my life without the constant reopening of wounds. 2 months after the divorce, I began seeing Dr. Diana Mercer, a psychologist specializing in betrayal trauma. Our weekly sessions became anchors in my new routine. "The betrayal you experienced was doubly traumatic because it came from the two people you should have been able to trust implicitly," Diana explained during our first session. Your husband and your sister held unique positions of trust in your life. Their betrayal challenges your ability to trust not just them but anyone. Those words crystallized the formless anxiety I had been experiencing. I had begun questioning every relationship, analyzing past interactions for signs I might have missed, and holding new acquaintances at arm's length. How do I ever trust anyone again? I asked her. Slowly and intentionally, she replied. Trust is something you will now give incrementally based on consistent behavior over time rather than automatically. That is not a bad thing, Jessica. Discernment in relationships is healthy. Through our work together, I began distinguishing between the pain of betrayal and my own value as a person. I learned that Marcus and Stephanie's actions reflected their character flaws, not my worthiness of love and loyalty. Professionally, I channeled my energy into work with a focus that surprised even me. 3 months after the divorce, my boss called me into his office. The team for the new Midwest expansion is coming together, and we need a creative director to head it up, he said. You are the first person I thought of for the role. The promotion came with a substantial salary increase and more creative control than I had ever experienced. The challenge of building a department from the ground up provided healthy distraction and a renewed sense of purpose. You have always been our strongest conceptual thinker, my boss told me as I accepted the position, but the resilience you have shown these past months confirms you have the leadership qualities we need. It was the first time I had considered that my personal trauma might have strengthened, rather than diminished me, that surviving betrayal had forged qualities valuable in other areas of life. With my career on solid ground, I turned attention to rebuilding my personal life. I joined a Saturday morning yoga class, forcing myself to show up even on days when I wanted to hide under the covers. The instructor Gabrielle noticed my consistent attendance and invited me to join a book club she hosted monthly. We read everything from classics to beach reads, she explained. But mostly we drink wine and talk about life. That book club introduced me to 5 women who became crucial parts of my new support system. Unlike friends who had known me as part of a couple or as Stephanie's sister, these women knew only the person I was becoming. Their perspectives were untainted by my past. 4 months after the divorce, I took my first solo vacation, a long weekend in Seattle. It was a city I had always wanted to visit, but Marcus had preferred tropical destinations. Walking along the waterfront alone, navigating Pike Place Market at my own pace, and spending an entire afternoon in the Chihuly Garden without considering anyone else's preferences felt like claiming my independence in a tangible way. In my hotel room overlooking Puget Sound, I opened my journal and wrote, "Today I realized I do not miss Marcus anymore. I miss who I thought he was, but that person never existed. I miss the future I had planned, but I am creating a new one that might be even better because it is authentically mine." It was around this time that I heard through Amanda that Marcus and Stephanie had broken up. A mutual friend had run into Marcus at a bar drinking alone and looking miserable. Apparently, reality set in once the excitement of forbidden fruit wore off, Amanda reported. He told Paul that Stephanie was immature and demanding in ways he had not anticipated. I was surprised by my lack of satisfaction at this news. Their relationship imploding did not undo the damage they had caused, and I had moved too far in my healing journey to derive pleasure from their pain. 2 weeks later, the first attempt at contact came. An email from Marcus appeared in my work account, the only one he still had access to. "Jessica, I made the biggest mistake of my life. Stephanie and I are over. I realize now what I threw away. Can we meet to talk? I miss you." I deleted it without responding. A week later, another message arrived, this one longer and more detailed, describing his regrets and the ways he had changed. Again, I deleted it without reply. Next came messages through mutual friends. Marcus asked Paul to check if Jessica might be open to a coffee just as friends. He approached Rachel at an industry event, begging her to put in a good word for him. Both respected my wishes and declined to get involved. "He seems genuinely remorseful," Rachel told me, after declining his request. "But that is not my business. My loyalty is to you." Her words highlighted how much healthier my new relationships were. I was surrounding myself with people who respected boundaries and demonstrated loyalty through actions, not just words. 5 months after the divorce, I went on my first date. Michael was an architect I met through the book club, soft-spoken and thoughtful in ways that contrasted sharply with Marcus's charismatic intensity. Our dinner conversation flowed easily, but when he leaned in for a goodnight kiss, I felt myself freeze. "I am sorry," I said, stepping back. "I am not ready for that yet." Instead of pressure or disappointment, Michael simply smiled. "No apology needed. I enjoy your company, Jessica. We can take things at whatever pace feels right for you." His respect for my boundaries was another revelation, another reminder that healthy relationships operated differently than what I had experienced with Marcus. Though Michael and I eventually decided we were better as friends, the experience of dating again without pressure helped me recognize that I could trust my own judgment again. As the 6-month mark approached, I felt more like myself than I had since discovering the affair. My apartment had become a true home, filled with art and furniture that reflected my tastes alone. My new role at work challenged and fulfilled me. My circle of friends provided genuine connection without the undercurrents of competition and jealousy that had marked my relationship with Stephanie. I was learning to trust again, cautiously and with better discernment. I was learning that endings, even painful ones, created space for new beginnings. I was learning that I was stronger than I had ever imagined. And then, exactly 6 months after my divorce was finalized, everything changed again. I was cleaning out my closet when I found an old phone, my backup device that I had forgotten to cancel. Out of curiosity, I charged it and turned it on. The screen immediately lit up with notifications. 100 missed calls from Marcus, all from the same day, just 1 week earlier. The sight of 100 missed calls from Marcus sent a chill through me. My first instinct was to turn off the phone and throw it away, maintaining the hard boundary I had established. But something about the concentrated timing of the calls, all within a few hours, suggested an urgency beyond his previous attempts to reconnect. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the notification. The logical part of my brain reminded me how far I had come, how peaceful my life had become without Marcus and Stephanie in it. Opening this door even slightly risked disrupting that peace. Yet another part of me recognized that closure might require understanding the full truth, whatever that might be. With trembling fingers, I navigated to the voicemail. 23 messages waited, each one recorded after Marcus had reached my voicemail again and again. I took a deep breath and played the first one. "Jessica, it is Marcus. I know you changed your number and you do not want to hear from me. I respect that, I do. But there are things you need to know, things I should have told you months ago. Please call me back. It is important." His voice sounded different, strained and tired. I moved to the next message. "Jess, I am at Northwestern Memorial. There has been an accident. Before anything else happens, I need to tell you the truth. The whole truth. Please call me at this number." "Hospital accident." My heart raced as I continued listening. The third message began with what sounded like muffled crying. "I cannot believe you still will not pick up. I deserve that, I know, but you deserve the truth. Stephanie manipulated both of us, Jessica. She planned everything from the beginning." I paused the playback, trying to process what I was hearing. Was this just another attempt to shift blame, to rewrite history in a way that absolved him? I considered deleting the remaining messages, but curiosity pushed me forward. "It started at our wedding," Marcus continued in the fourth message. "Stephanie told me you had confessed having second thoughts, that you felt trapped but were going through with it for appearances. I did not believe her at first, but then she showed me texts from your phone. I know now she sent them herself when you left your phone unattended." My mind reeled. I had never had second thoughts about marrying Marcus. Never. But I did recall Stephanie borrowing my phone several times during wedding preparations, claiming her battery was dead. The messages continued, each one revealing another layer of a scheme so calculated it took my breath away. "She told me you were having an affair with your boss," Marcus's voice explained in the sixth message. "She showed me pictures of you entering a hotel together. I know now you were there for the marketing conference. She cropped the photos to remove the rest of the team." Message after message detailed Stephanie's methodical campaign to destroy our marriage. She had deleted messages I had sent to Marcus. She had told him I was planning to leave him once I secured my promotion. She had convinced him I was staying late at work to avoid coming home to him. I was an idiot to believe her, he admitted in the 10th message. But she was your sister. Why would I think she would lie about these things? She kept pushing us together, offering a sympathetic ear, telling me I deserved better than how you were treating me. And I fell for it completely. By the 15th message, Marcus was describing the night I found them together. She knew your schedule. She knew you had the presentation that day. But she told me you had texted her saying you were working until midnight. She brought over that champagne, kept pouring glasses. I was drunk, Jessica, though that is no excuse. She said things about how she had always admired me, how she could make me happy in ways you never tried to. I was weak and angry and believed you were cheating on me. It was the biggest mistake of my life. I sat in stunned silence as the full picture emerged. While I had been working late to secure our financial future, dreaming of the family we would build, Stephanie had been methodically poisoning my marriage, turning Marcus against me with lies and manipulations born of jealousy so deep it bordered on pathological. The later messages took an even darker turn. After you filed for divorce, Stephanie became possessive in ways that scared me, Marcus explained. When I questioned some of her stories, she threatened to tell everyone I had pursued her, that I had been obsessed with her for years. She had saved texts and emails she could edit to make it look that way. I was trapped in a relationship built on lies, afraid of what she would do if I left. The final messages were recorded from what sounded like a hospital room, machines beeping in the background. I am in the ER, Jess. My car was forced off Lakeshore Drive last night. The police think it was intentional. The car that hit me matches Stephanie's Honda. My hand flew to my mouth in shock. Stephanie found out I was planning to tell you everything. She came to my apartment hysterical. When I confirmed I was going to come clean, she stormed out. 2 hours later, driving home from a client meeting, a blue car rammed me from behind multiple times until I lost control. His voice weakened in the last few messages. The doctors say there is internal bleeding they cannot control. I am being prepped for surgery, but they are not optimistic. A long pause. I needed you to know the truth. Not to win you back, that ship has sailed and I destroyed any chance of that with my weakness and stupidity. But you deserve to know you did nothing wrong. You were a perfect wife, Jessica. I was just too blind to see it. The final message was not from Marcus at all, but from a woman identifying herself as Nurse Bellamy from Northwestern Memorial Hospital. This message is for Jessica Reynolds. I am calling on behalf of Marcus Reynolds, who was admitted yesterday evening. Mr. Reynolds asked me to inform you that he is going into emergency surgery. He wanted you to know. She paused, her voice softening. He said to tell you he was sorry, and that he made sure the truth was documented with his lawyer if you ever wanted to know more. His condition is critical. If you wish to visit, please come to the 4th floor ICU. The message was time-stamped 6 days ago. With shaking hands, I called Northwestern Memorial and asked for patient information. The woman who answered put me on a brief hold before returning with the news that shattered what remained of my anger toward Marcus. I am sorry to inform you that Marcus Reynolds passed away 5 days ago due to complications from traumatic internal injuries. The phone slipped from my fingers as the reality hit me. Marcus was gone, forever gone. And with him, the possibility of ever truly understanding what had happened between us, of confronting him with questions only he could answer, of perhaps someday reaching some form of forgiveness. In a daze, I called Amanda, who arrived at my apartment 30 minutes later with a bottle of wine and a shoulder to cry on. I played her several of the messages, watching her expression shift from skepticism to horror as she heard Marcus's accusations against Stephanie. "Do you believe him?" she asked after I turned off the phone. "I do not know," I answered honestly. "It sounds fantastical, but it also explains so many things that never made sense. The sudden change in Marcus, the way Stephanie was always there, the timing of everything." "What about the accident? Do you think Stephanie actually tried to kill him?" I shook my head slowly. I cannot imagine even she would go that far. But then again, I never imagined she would sleep with my husband either. The next morning, I called Deborah for advice and played her some of the messages. Her response was immediate and practical. Marcus mentioned documentation with his lawyer. I can reach out to Stanley Green, who represented him in the divorce. If Marcus left evidence supporting these claims, we should be able to access it. 2 days later, I sat in Deborah's office as she opened a large envelope from Stanley Green. Inside was a USB drive and a letter addressed to me in Marcus's handwriting. With Deborah's permission, I opened it privately. Jessica, it began. If you are reading this, I have either finally reached you or something has happened to me. Everything I told you in those messages is true. Enclosed is evidence I have been gathering since I began to suspect Stephanie had manipulated us both. There are screenshots of text conversations where she admits what she did, photos she doctored, and a recorded conversation where she threatens me. I was a fool, and I paid for that foolishness with the loss of the only woman I ever truly loved. I hope this information gives you some peace. All my love, despite everything, Marcus. The USB drive contained exactly what he had described, a digital record of Stephanie's elaborate deception. Text screenshots showing her boasting to a friend about how she had finally taken something from perfect Jessica. Photos of me with colleagues that she had cropped and edited to appear intimate. And most damning, a video Marcus had secretly recorded 2 months after our divorce, showing Stephanie raging at him for looking at a photo of me, threatening to destroy him, like I destroyed her if he ever tried to leave. This is fairly conclusive, Deborah said after reviewing the evidence. The question is, what do you want to do with it? It was a question I had been pondering since hearing those voicemails. Part of me wanted to confront Stephanie to force her to face what she had done. Another part wanted to send everything to my parents, proving once and for all who had been telling the truth. But as I sat there in Deborah's office, I realized what I wanted most was simply to be free, truly free of the whole toxic situation. Nothing, I said finally. I do not want to do anything with it right now. I just needed to know the truth. Deborah nodded understandingly. Keep the evidence safe. You may feel differently in the future. As I left her office, I felt an unexpected lightness. The truth had not changed what happened, but it had lifted the lingering doubt that had shadowed my recovery. I had not been crazy to trust Marcus initially. I had not been blind to miss signs of his dissatisfaction. I had been the victim of a deliberate, malicious campaign by someone consumed with jealousy. Later that afternoon, I received a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Jessica Reynolds, a formal voice inquired. Yes, this is she. This is Detective Thomas Harrington with the Chicago Police Department. I am investigating the accident that resulted in the death of Marcus Reynolds. I understand you are his former wife. My heart raced. Yes, that is correct. We have reason to believe the accident was not accidental at all. Would you be available to answer some questions about Stephanie Morris? And just like that, I was pulled back into the vortex I had been trying to escape, but this time with the cold comfort of knowing the truth was finally coming to light. The days following my conversation with Detective Harrington passed in a blur. I provided him with the evidence from Marcus's USB drive, which corroborated their suspicions about Stephanie's involvement in the accident. Security footage from a traffic camera had captured a blue Honda Civic repeatedly ramming Marcus's car from behind until it crashed through the guardrail. The driver's face was not visible, but the partial license plate matched Stephanie's vehicle. A week later, I received another call from Detective Harrington. We have arrested Stephanie Morris for the vehicular homicide of Marcus Reynolds, he informed me. She has been denied bail due to flight risk. The news should have brought satisfaction or at least closure, but instead left me feeling hollow. A man was dead. My sister faced decades in prison. There were no winners in this tragedy, only cascading losses stemming from jealousy and deceit. The funeral for Marcus was scheduled for the following Saturday. I debated whether to attend, unsure if my presence would be appropriate or welcome. In the end, I decided I needed this final goodbye, not to the man who had betrayed me, but to the man I had loved, the man who had been manipulated just as I had been. The service was held at a small chapel near his parents' home in Evanston. I arrived early, slipping into a seat at the back, hoping to remain unnoticed. But as Marcus's mother entered and scanned the gathering, her eyes locked with mine. To my surprise, she made her way directly to me. "Jessica," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "I am so glad you came." Before I could respond, she embraced me tightly. "Marcus told us everything before he died," she whispered. "About Stephanie's lies, about how he had wronged you. He was trying to make amends." Her forgiveness broke something inside me, releasing tears I had thought were long exhausted. She guided me to sit with the family in the front row, a gesture of inclusion that spoke volumes about their understanding of what had truly happened. The service was simple but moving, focused on Marcus's professional accomplishments and charitable work rather than his personal life. Several colleagues spoke of his mentorship and integrity in business. A childhood friend shared stories that reminded me of the man I had fallen in love with, kind and thoughtful beneath his confident exterior. At the end of the service, Marcus's father approached the podium. "My son made mistakes," he said candidly, "serious ones that hurt people he cared about. But in his final days, he sought to make amends, to tell the truth, even when it was painful. That courage in the face of his own failings is what I will remember most." As the attendees moved to the cemetery for the burial, Marcus's mother walked beside me. "He loved you very much, Jessica, even at the end. His last coherent words were about you, about hoping you would find happiness." These words, rather than reopening wounds, helped heal them. The man I had married had still existed somewhere beneath the manipulation and poor choices. He had not been perfect, but neither had he been the monster I had believed him to be during those dark months after discovering the affair. Following the burial, I expected to leave immediately, but Marcus's parents invited me to join the small gathering at their home. There, surrounded by people who had known Marcus his whole life, I began to make peace with the complicated truth of our relationship. We had loved each other genuinely. We had both been victims of Stephanie's pathological jealousy. And while his choices could not be excused, they could perhaps be understood in the context of the elaborate deception he had been subjected to. As I prepared to leave, Marcus's father pressed an envelope into my hands. "He wanted you to have this," he said quietly. "He wrote it in the hospital before the surgery." Later that night, alone in my apartment, I opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a letter written in Marcus's unsteady handwriting. "Dear Jessica," it began. "If you are reading this, I did not survive. Perhaps that is the universe's justice for the pain I caused you. Before I go, I need you to know that loving you was the best part of my life. My greatest regret is not trusting in that love when Stephanie began planting doubts. I was weak and foolish, and I will never forgive myself for hurting you. Please know that you deserve every happiness this world has to offer. You are extraordinary, Jessica, and someday you will find someone worthy of your love. I was not that man, but I am grateful for the time I had with you. All my love always, Marcus." I sat with the letter for hours, crying not just for Marcus, but for all we had lost, for the future that had been stolen from us by Stephanie's malice and Marcus's weakness. For the first time, I allowed myself to grieve not just for my marriage, but for the man himself. 2 days after the funeral, my mother called. I nearly declined the call, but something pushed me to answer. "Jessica," she said, her voice breaking, "I am so sorry. We should have believed you." The police had contacted my parents following Stephanie's arrest, explaining the evidence against her. They had also been shown Marcus's documentation of her manipulations. "I do not know how to ask for your forgiveness," my mother continued. "We failed you completely." "Yes, I agreed, not ready to offer absolution. You did." "Your father and I have been talking with a therapist," she said. "We realize now how we enabled Stephanie's behavior throughout her life, always making excuses, always pushing you to be the bigger person. We cannot change the past, but we are trying to understand how we contributed to this tragedy." It was more self-awareness than I had ever heard from my mother. Not enough to heal the breach between us, but perhaps a beginning. "I need time," I told her honestly. "I cannot simply welcome you back into my life as if nothing happened." "I understand," she replied. "Whenever you are ready, if you are ever ready, we will be here." The criminal case against Stephanie proceeded swiftly. The evidence was overwhelming, not just of Marcus's murder, but of the calculated campaign to destroy my marriage. She eventually accepted a plea deal for second-degree murder, receiving a 20-year sentence with the possibility of parole after 15 years. I attended the sentencing hearing, needing to see this final chapter close. Stephanie looked small and pale in her prison jumpsuit, nothing like the confident, manipulative woman who had systematically dismantled my life. When given the opportunity to speak, she turned toward me in the gallery. "I was always jealous of you," she said, her voice flat. "Everything came so easily to you. Good grades, good jobs, good relationships. You had the perfect life, and I had nothing. I wanted to know what it felt like to be you just once, to have something you wanted. When I saw how Marcus looked at you, I decided he would be that something." Her lack of remorse was chilling. Even now, facing decades in prison, she saw herself as the victim in our story. "I am sorry it ended this way," she concluded, "but I am not sorry for loving him." It was the closest thing to an apology I would ever receive, and it was wholly insufficient. As she was led away in handcuffs, I realized I would never understand the depth of her hatred for me, and perhaps that was for the best. Some darkness should remain unexplored. In the year that followed, I rebuilt my life piece by piece. I sold my apartment in Chicago, the city now too full of painful memories. Seattle, which had offered such peace during my brief visit, called to me. I requested a transfer to our Pacific Northwest office, and my company, recognizing my value, agreed immediately. My new home overlooked Puget Sound, the ever-changing water, a constant reminder that life continues to flow forward, regardless of the obstacles in its path. I joined a hiking group exploring the magnificent wilderness of my new state every weekend. I volunteered teaching marketing skills to women re-entering the workforce after incarceration, finding purpose in helping others rebuild their lives as I had rebuilt mine. Slowly, cautiously, I allowed my parents back into my life with clear boundaries and expectations. Our relationship would never be what it once was, but we were creating something new, more honest, if less comfortable. 6 months after moving to Seattle, I met Daniel at a community art class I had joined on a whim. A high school art teacher with kind eyes and a gentle laugh, he approached relationships with a thoughtfulness I had come to value above all else. When I eventually shared my story with him, his response was simple but profound. "Thank you for trusting me with this," he said. "I understand why trust does not come easily to you now." Our relationship developed slowly, each step forward deliberate and considered. I was a different woman than the one who had rushed into marriage with Marcus, more cautious but also more self-aware. I recognized red flags more quickly and valued consistency over grand gestures. Daniel proved himself worthy of my trust, not through dramatic declarations, but through daily acts of respect and honesty. On the 1-year anniversary of my move to Seattle, I hiked to a clifftop overlooking the ocean and scattered Marcus's letter to the wind, releasing the last physical tie to my past. I did not hate him anymore. I did not love him either. I had reached a place of understanding that his weakness and Stephanie's malice had combined to create a perfect storm that nearly destroyed us all. The greatest lesson I learned through this painful journey was the importance of self-trust. I had ignored my intuition when it whispered that something was wrong in my marriage. I had doubted my perceptions when Marcus and Stephanie gaslit me. I had allowed others to define my reality. Never again. I had emerged from betrayal not just surviving but thriving, with a deeper understanding of my own resilience and worth. The experience had stripped away my naivety but left my capacity for joy intact. I could love again, trust again, but I would never again surrender my truth to someone else's narrative. Sometimes the people who hurt us the most give us the greatest gift of all, the chance to discover our true strength and the courage to rewrite our own story. My story was no longer defined by betrayal, but by the life I had created in its aftermath, a life of authenticity, purpose, and carefully curated connections with those who had earned their place in my heart. If you have ever experienced betrayal by those closest to you, know that healing is possible. Not easy, not quick, but possible. The path forward is not about forgetting, but about reclaiming your power, rebuilding your boundaries, and recognizing that you are worthy of genuine love and loyalty. Have you ever had to rebuild your life after betrayal? Share your story in the comments. Like and subscribe if this resonated with you, and remember that your worth is not determined by how others treat you, but by the strength you find in loving yourself enough to walk away from those who cannot see your value. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you the courage to honor your own truth, whatever that may be.